Hello boys and girls, and welcome to Grandma Teresa's Story Time. Today I'll be reading from Disney's Pixar, A Bug's Life, Flik the Inventor. Princess Dot and some of the blueberries stood outside Flik's room in the anthill. Pop, whiz, gulp came the noises from inside. As always, Flik was trying to invent something to help the ant colony. Maybe we should ask him if he needs help, Dot suggested. But before anyone could answer, there was a loud thump. Flik bounced out of the room, landing at Dot's feet. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Sometimes grandmas can make mistakes. Flik muttered as he stood up and brushed himself off. The flinging mechanism must be too tight. Flik was so deep in thought he didn't even notice Dot and her friends. He marched right past them and back into his room. Well, Dot said, at least we know he's okay. The next morning, Dot saw Flik at the edge of the fields with a funny-looking machine. "Hi, Flik," Dot said. "What you working on?" "Oh, hello, Princess," said Flik. He smiled happily. "This is my pick-up and mover machine." "How does it work?" asked Dot. "Here, let me show you," Flik said as he helped Dot up onto a rock. Then he started his machine. Soon an arm on the machine reached out and grabbed Dot. "That tickles," she said, giggling. Suddenly, Dot felt herself being lifted into the air. I bet she wasn't expecting that. A moment later, she landed safely on the ground. "Wowee!" cried Dot. "Look how far I moved." "Excellent," Flik said. "I'm glad I adjusted that flinging mechanism. Otherwise, you might have ended up on the other side of Ant Island." Just then, Thorny appeared. "Flik," Thorny said, "why aren't you collecting food with the rest of the worker ants?" "Hello, Thorny. I was hoping you'd ask me that very question," Flik replied. "You see, I have invented a new machine. Would you like to see how it works?" Thorny was angry. "We don't have time for all these silly inventions. There's work to be done. We need to collect food." "But," Flik tried to explain. "Just get to work like the other ants," Thorny called as he stomped away. Flik hung his head. Oh dear. "Don't worry, Flik," Dot said. "You'll figure out some way to use your invention. I just know it." "Yeah, it must be good for something. But what?" Flik said to Dot as he walked out to the fields to work. What do you think his invention could be good for? You have an idea? Keep in mind what we've been reading about so far. Later that night, Flik sat in his room trying to think of a useful invention. Suddenly, he got an idea. He worked deep into the night. Early the next morning, Dot found Flik outside looking intently at a large stalk. "Flik," she said, "you better get out in the fields with the other ants. Thorny's been looking for you." Oh dear, could he be in trouble again? I will, Flik said. But would you like to see my latest invention first? It's a stock chopper. Flik, you're going to get in trouble, Dot warned. You're supposed to be collecting food. You think this invention will work for him? Maybe get him out of trouble. Yes, Flik said. I will, right after I try this out. Stand back, Princess. Flik started up his machine and set to work. Moments later, the stock was chopped neatly in half. Aha! Flik cried. It worked. How do you like that, Princess? But Dot didn't answer. Thorny did. Oh no. Here we go again. Looks like he may be in trouble. How many times do I have to tell you there's work to be done? Cried Thorny. But Thorny, Flik said, look at this. It's my new stock chopping machine. We don't have time for this, Thorny insisted. But I'm sure, Flik began. We don't need to chop stalks. We need to collect food, Thorny told him. Flik's antennae dropped as he walked out to the fields to join the other worker ants. That's all Thorny thinks about, harvesting food, Flik mumbled to himself. Then Flik stopped short. That's what we need, he cried. A harvester, a machine to collect food. Flik turned around and raced back to his room. He looked at his pickup and mover machine. Then he looked at his stock chopping machine. What would happen if I combined them? Flik thought out loud. I guess there's only one way to find out. Following morning, with his new invention strapped to his back, Flik headed toward the fields. He smiled as he watched two ant children run past him playing tag. Then he waved at some worker ants collecting food. Flik sighed happily. He knew that his invention would save the worker ants hours of working time. In fact, Flik thought he might become something of a hero. Do you think this machine is going to work? And it will help keep him out of trouble as well as collect the food. Flik tried to get Thorny's attention, but Thorny was too busy talking to Princess Anna, and Princess Dot was nowhere to be found. Flik, one of the worker ants called out, what crazy thing did you invent this time? Ha ha ha! The other ants laughed too. That Flik, one said, he always thinking of useless stuff. But Flik didn't mind the other ants teasing. He was busy starting up his machine. Then he cut down a stalk. Moments later, the flinging mechanism launched dozens of pieces of grain into a basket. Flik's machine worked. Sounds like he's off to a good start. Hey, cried one worker ant, that's your pickup and mover machine. That's right, Flik said proudly. And it's connected to your stock chopping machine, said another ant. Uh-huh, Flik replied. Wow, shouted the worker ants. Sounds like they're impressed with this new invention, doesn't it? Yep, I put them together and made a harvester, Flik explained. Now one ant can collect as much food as a whole bunch of ants put together. Hooray! Cried the other ants. 3 cheers for Flik. Flik grinned. He had done it. He had finally created a really useful machine. And this is a passage from Dot's journal. Dear Blueberry Journal, boy, the worker ants sure do work hard. Just a few of them collect enough food for the entire ant colony to survive winter. Sometimes the seeds are already on the ground, and the workers pick them up and carry them away in their mouths. Other times, they have to cut the seeds off the grasses and weeds before they can take them. Now that we have Flik's harvester, everyone can gather seeds faster and more easily. Then all the worker ants have to do is carry them inside the nest to keep them dry. Hooray! More time to play. Till next time, Dot. Well, at least now Flik won't have Thorny yelling at him because he's not out in the fields working, right? I'm glad that was a good ending to the story, aren't you? So, until next time, the more we get together, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. For your friends are my friends are your friends. The more we get together, the happier we'll be. Stay safe. Bye now.